The new Samsung Galaxy Tab S7 Plus is a jump forward for Samsung and Android tablets in general. And so it's not surprising that it's getting compared to the iPad Pro quite a bit. But how does it really stack up? Well, we're here today to find out in this edition of Smackdown. Hello, my name is Brad. I review tech for creative professionals, and I've done videos like this in the past, and they always end pretty much the same way, where I say, hey, Samsung, you've made a great piece of hardware, but the app ecosystem is just not quite ready yet. But finally, over the last year, we've seen that start to turn around, and that's what makes this particular episode of Smackdown so interesting. Let's bring in the contenders. Today, we've got a tablet Smackdown between Samsung's top-of-the-line Galaxy Tab S7 Plus and Apple's latest 2020 iPad Pro. So let's get started by looking at the hardware. The iPad Pro comes in two sizes, 11 inches and 12.9 inches. Samsung's Galaxy Tab S7 comes in two sizes as well, 11 inches and 12.4 inches. The larger Tab S7 Plus is almost the exact same width as the iPad Pro, but it's a different aspect ratio, making it a little bit narrower. Looking at the screen resolutions, they're pretty comparable. S7 Plus, you got 2,800 pixels by 1,752, and the iPad Pro's at 2,732 pixels by 2,048. Again, much of that pixel difference is coming from that aspect ratio difference. The Super AMOLED display on the S7 Plus is considered to be superior tech to the LCD iPad screen. And when you see them next to each other, I can see that the colors are definitely punchier on the S7, but the iPad Pro screen is no slouch. It is really good. On the hardware side of things, these have a lot in common. Both have the more squared off edges, some antenna lines along the back, the brushed aluminum finish. They're even dropping the physical face button that older models have. The iPad Pro has an A12Z Bionic chip, whereas the S7 Plus has the Snapdragon 865 chip. That is the best chip you're going to find in an iPad, and that is the best chip you are going to find in an Android tablet. What about RAM? Both have 6 gigabytes. And one thing to note is you jump up to the larger storage size on the Tab S7, you also get another 2 gigabytes of RAM for a grand total of 8 gigabytes. Storage is pretty similar with both starting at 128 gigs. The iPad can go all the way up to a full terabyte of storage, whereas the highest configuration of the Tab S7 maxes out at 512 gigabytes. But with the Galaxy Tab S7, there is a micro SD card slot door along the side, so if you want, you could expand your storage even further. Rechargeable pens, yep, we got them. The iPad's pen recharges along the side, whereas the S7 rests along the stripe along the back near the cameras. I personally prefer the side charging, but really, it's not that big a deal. And if you really want to, you can still attach the S7's pen along the side. It's just not going to charge while it's there. Also, the magnets on the Galaxy Tab aren't nearly as strong as they are on the iPad, so sometimes your pen's just gonna flop off if you're not being careful. Now, an important thing to note here is the Galaxy Tab's pen comes packed into the box. It doesn't cost extra, whereas the Apple Pencil, that's another $130 on top of your iPad purchase. Another difference between these two pens is that if the battery dies on the iPad Pro's Pencil, you have to charge it up before you can use it again. Whereas the S Pen, it doesn't need a battery in order to draw. Sounds kind of weird, but that battery is for some extra Bluetooth features that they've packed into the pen. The drawing experience isn't affected at all by the battery. Also, both of these pens have gotten their latency down to a very low level, which means when you're drawing with them, at least in an app that's optimized for it, you're not going to see any space between the pen tip and the line dragging behind it. The key here is that the app actually has to be designed to work with the pen. Even if it's not really optimized for the pen, you're still going to find some improvement, especially on the Android side. I could go either way with this one. I'm going to give it to Samsung, though, for that slightly better screen and also including a micro SD card slot. The smaller iPad Pro starts at $799, the S7 starts at $649. $849 for the larger Tab S7 and $1,000 for the larger iPad. It's not uncommon to see Samsung products fall in price in the months after release. That's something you very rarely see in an Apple product unless a new one is released and they're trying to get rid of old inventory. And also, Samsung's products tend to be on a faster refresh cycle, whereas the iPad Pros are being updated about every year and a half, 18 months. Samsung has been updating their tablets on an annual basis. Neither of these comes with a keyboard, but you can pick one up extra. $200 for the Samsung Galaxy Book cover, and also $200 for the basic iPad Pro Smart Keyboard cover. And of course, there's Apple's new Magic Keyboard, which is selling for $300 or $350, depending on what size you get. If you're looking at these prices and you're thinking, oof, this is still really high, there are some options out there for you. I mentioned that Samsung lowers their prices over time. If you look at the Tab S6 Lite that came out earlier this year, that's currently on sale for $280 here in the US. That's a steal. Also, if you're looking at the entry-level iPad line, that starts at $329. You do have to add a $100 Apple Pencil to that, but I think value per dollar there is still pretty high. There's also older or refurbished hardware out there. For example, you might be able to find an older iPad or last year's Tab S6 and save a little money that way too. All right, so who is the winner of the price category? We're giving this one to Samsung. It's a lower price, but you're getting a very serious value for it. The drawing experience on both of these is good. In fact, it's better than good. It's really good. Being able to zoom in by pinching and zooming, or use hand gestures like 2 fingers to undo or swiping around, seems more intuitive after you've used them for a while than poking around a desktop interface with a pen touch tablet thing. Both of these pens are really accurate. Both have great pressure sensitivity. Both are fantastic drawing experiences. Where the Apple Pencil edges out the Wacom-powered stylus that comes with the S7 is in palm rejection. Whenever I draw on this device, I'm always left with little dots where my palm was resting on the screen, and it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens enough. This varies from app to app. For example, Clip Studio, which is now on Android devices, or at least Samsung's Android devices, has fantastic palm recognition. It's amazing how little fixes like that can dramatically improve how much you enjoy using a device. How's the Apple Pencil in that regard? Well, out of the gate, the Apple Pencil just nailed this years ago. It is fantastic. The S Pen that comes with the S7 is considerably lighter than the Apple Pencil. This is something that you get used to, but it's not as well weighted or as premium feeling. The S Pen itself has a rubbery tip, and this gives you some drawing resistance when you're on that glass screen. But something to note here is there are no replacement nibs in the box. Since this is a soft rubber tip, it's going to wear out over time, and it's probably going to wear out, I'd say, fairly quickly. The Apple Pencil, on the other hand, has a very hard tip, which is going to last you quite a while. The catch here, though, is the Apple Pencil is going to slide around on that smooth glass screen a heck of a lot more than the S Pen is. And I know what some of you are thinking, why don't you just put a screen protector on? Make the experience better. It's not a bad idea. Hold on, I know a guy. Do you have any interest in sponsoring the video? Really? I would like to thank today's sponsor, Paperlike. The iPad screen is smooth glass. The pencil is a plastic tip. It slides around when you're drawing, and I find I get a lot more control when I'm using Paperlike on my iPad. It feels so much more natural and gives your iPad screen a paper-like texture, hence the name. It even sounds like paper when you draw on it. You can get Paperlike for any size iPad, the cute little iPad mini all the way up to the giant iPad Pro. There is a link down in the description where you can get yours today. Also, before you go, they have some free Procreate brushes up on their site, a whole set of them. I'll link those down below in the description too. So the winner of this category goes to the Apple Pencil. S Pen is no slouch, but I think that palm rejection gives the Apple Pencil a slight edge here. This is where things have changed the most over the past year. In the past, I would get an Android tablet, and honestly, I would just get so frustrated that I was thankful when the review was over and I could just go back to my iPad. There were never any big problems that I encountered, just little problems, issues, quirks that would build up over time and get on my nerves. I would get into the flow and an app would crash, or I would get tired of cleaning up lines my palm left, or maybe I couldn't find a brush that felt right, or there were way too many clicks just to pick a color. These little things piled up. Any one of those things alone you can overcome, but taken together, and it wasn't a fun experience. Over the last year or two, it's the software stability, especially with apps like Infinite Painter, which is very similar to Procreate, has really improved. Now we have Krita on Android. It's a thing. It's a little bit buggy. It's still in beta, but there's a lot of promise there. And the game changer for me has been Clip Studio Paint. This used to be my go-to program on the desktop way back in the day, and I really, honestly, I think is much better on the tablet. Pinching and zooming, tapping to undo, it's just so nice. If you want to compare Clip Studio on the iPad to Clip Studio on Android, I think it does run a little bit better on the iPad, although it is brand new on Android, so maybe it'll get better. But just little things, for example, pinching to zooming, just a little bit smoother on the iPad, but it's still very good on Android. Now, head to head, I still think the iPad has the edge here. Procreate, Affinity Designer, Affinity Photo, Photoshop, Adobe's apps are starting to come to the iPad. Another thing you're going to find is Android apps are Android apps, where there are iPhone apps and iPad apps. Those are two totally different things in the Apple ecosystem. So what ends up happening on Android is often you will open up an app like, say, Instagram, which is designed for the phone, and you can't view it in landscape mode. This happens with a lot of apps. Although in the iPad's defense, there is no Instagram app for the iPad, so you have to use the iPhone one. But this does happen a heck of a lot more on Android than it does on the iPad. This round was much closer than it has been in years past. However, at the end of the day, I have to say the app ecosystem and software, this award is, of course, going to go to the iPad. So what is my final verdict here? I think for most illustrators and designers and people who are just jumping into the world of drawing on tablets, I still think the iPad is probably the better choice. You're gonna love Procreate. If you really want to draw in Clip Studio, it's available there for you as well. Adobe is very slowly but surely bringing over some of their functionality, not just their apps that are a little half-baked at this point, but also things like font support and Creative Cloud support. Now for me, personally, since I got the Tab S7 Plus, I've decided to go all into Android for a few months just to see how I feel about it down the road. I mentioned earlier that in past years when I reviewed an Android tablet like the Tab S4 is a great example, when I got to the end of that review, I was just so thankful it was over and I could go back to my iPad apps. But this year, I really feel, especially with Clip Studio, that hey, this is my primary drawing app. I like it, I can use it every day, and I'm going to have a great time with it. I also read a lot of comics. I have the Marvel app on there. This is the perfect screen and the perfect size for reading comics. They are beautiful. Xbox Game Pass allows you to stream your games or stream the games that are available onto your Android tablet or Android phone. Those work surprisingly well here. So that's another thing that's not available on an Apple device yet. I wouldn't be surprised if that changes. There's just too much money to be made for both of those companies. But for now, it's Android only. Even though I feel that the iPad is the winner and probably the better choice for most people, I think we've finally gotten to the point where I don't have any hesitation saying to people, hey, go get the Tab S7 Plus, because this is a great device that now has great software support and overall a fantastic experience. And there are a lot of people who just don't want to dive into the Apple ecosystem because they're already in the Android ecosystem, or they just don't like Apple in general. Totally understandable. Or you want to save a good chunk of change when you're buying this stuff. If you're one of those people and you've been in that camp, I think now is a great time to make that leap. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.